Hello everybody and welcome to the Disruptability Podcast. Today we're talking to Alan Craughwell, who works for the Cork Foundation. Alan set up Ireland's first mixed ability rugby team, Sundays Well Rebels, here in Cork. He also chairs the IRFU Disability Working Group. Today, Alan is going to tell us all about mixed ability sport and the International Mixed Ability Rugby Tournament, which is coming to Cork in June 2020. Thank you for listening. Today, I am absolutely delighted to welcome Alan Craughwell, who is the man who's bringing the International Mixed Ability Rugby Tournament to Cork. Welcome.
Claire, thanks very much. That's a lovely introduction. I suppose, I am, bringing a tournament to Cork, but obviously there's a team behind me and there's a team of people that have always been behind in terms of support of this whole big movement around mixed ability sports, which is a really exciting thing in terms of, offering sport back to people purely from a social and a recreational point of view. If you think of sport and you think of especially very timely Six Nations rugby, it's the 1% who are elite and who are the professionals and who are contracted players and playing at top level. But 99% of us, we're not that elite. Yeah. We just are. We all may think we're wannabe heroes and we thought we were very good at one stage, or we maybe never tried a sport or would like to be involved. And I suppose what this whole international mixed ability tournament is, it's about bringing the idea that people with and without disabilities can be on the same field without major adaptations of rules or regulations. So what you're doing essentially is you're not categorizing people. So you're not putting somebody into a box and labeling, saying you can only do certain amounts of this activity. Just let it run. Just play the game the way it's supposed to be played, or enjoy the activity the way it's supposed to be enjoyed. Brilliant. And have a shared experience with that. And I think that's what it is. And I suppose I'd kind of explain what mixed abilities at rugby is. Primarily is how we started. My day job, I work in Cork Foundation. I manage community-based services called community hubs, and they're generally for people who are, leaving school and coming into early adulthood, and looking at kind of, what are they going to do socially? What are they going to do for education? What are they going to do for work? So them three big areas. It's the same as anybody, say in their early 20s or all of us did it. So it's that real space of discovery I'm involved in, and it's very enjoyable. And
what age group now are these group of students?
So they're young adults, anything from over 20, 21, going right up to, there's no age range really, but generally the people that we've been supporting in the community-based services have been kind of coming at us from that age. So we're getting a lot of enthusiastic young people, who are technologically probably the most advanced in terms of people with learning difficulties, who have a broad range of interests. And what's fantastic is I've seen over my years of working in the area is the level of the level of understanding and value that people have on themselves with disabilities is really shining. It's really shining.
You think it's increasing now?
I think it is in terms of there's an understanding that, I give you an example. Okay, we would have done job shadow days, and one of my colleagues, Marion Hennessy, she runs ability work program with us, and I was having a conversation with Marion one day about one particular individual, and I just said, you know what, he did his job shadow this year, but he asked for a job and he asked for work. The year before, he was just happy to get a voucher. And I just thought that was a change in mindset of that individual. It's like, you know what, I'm not just here just to fill a couple of hours and to be a tokenistic person with disabilities who's on a job shadow.
But you see, it's us believing, people with disabilities, us believing that we are valuable.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about what Caroline Casey and the Valuable 500 is doing on a global scale, telling companies, telling businesses, we are a valuable group of people. We're 20% of the global population. Don't forget about us.
No.
You know? So it's great to see that younger people are now realising they are valuable.
So.
I'm delighted.
Yeah, so like, great. I mean, that's part of our work that we do within the organisation, and I'm sure Marion would love to come on, and some of the guys would love to come on to you again if you have them.
Definitely. Oh, 100%.
I'm sure I'm sure Marion, I can drop her an email, let us know.
Yeah.
But like, think about that, and then think about sport.
Yes.
And in my work, you know, I was looking at a cohort of guys at the time, big, physically strong guys, you know, who were working in a woodwork department, you know, who constantly, because I'm from Ballinasloe, County Galway, were constantly getting on to me about being a Connacht supporter in the Munster heartland of Cork Rugby, you know. So I was getting grief off them the whole time. I said, you know what, these guys, they need to know what it's like to play this game. And I read an article in Rugby World magazine. And that article is probably the catalyst for change within, maybe possibly within sport, within Ireland. You never know where this is going to go in terms of how it's going to shape the future of how sporting organisations, governing bodies actually look at how they engage with people with disabilities within their own sports. So with that article, you know what, it was just two pictures really stood out in my mind. One was guys clearly who had disabilities alongside rugby players who clearly didn't and just covered in mud, and the other one was a social scene back in the clubhouse. And I just thought of the two guys, Danny and James. They're one guy's the size as Peter Stringer, the other guy's as big as Paul O'Connell, and I just thought, you know what, these guys need to play rugby. And I went to them, I said, lads, what do you think of this? And this is how it really, and I showed them the article, and one of the things that one of the guys said, as long as I'm not pulling shorts off strings, I'll play. I want to play real rugby or no rugby at all. And you know what, that was a real strong cue or a message to say, you're either doing this right or you're not doing it at all. You know, don't just be tokenistic with this. The guys want to play the game. And that's it. And that's essentially it is the nub of mixed ability sport. Where
your idea got it. So it's already running in other countries, is it? And Ireland has participated in other.
So like back in 2013, 2014, I would have picked up on that article and, you know, saw the teams that were there, saw the clubs, and I just reached out to them. I reached out to them and contacted and, you know, did all the Google searches, dropped emails, introduced myself, and actually went over to England to Bradford and watched Bradford and Bingley Bumblebees and Cletley Warriors, a Welsh team and an English team play. Went over with, at the time, two colleagues of mine. One was a physio and the other guy was a nurse, Ray Dennehy and Conor O'Farrell, and we went over, and Conor had been playing with the seniors club in Sunday as well, and he also was I think he turned up in Dublin, you know, physio, really into his rugby. And Ray Dennehy, you know, an intellectual disability nurse, you know, he spent his life playing rugby, say out in Muskerry, and, you know, he was very involved, but had gone away from sport altogether. Never thought this would come back into his life again. I would think. We spent a weekend in Bradford, and we just met, talked, people left with loads of contacts, and came back. And before that, we had already gone to Sunday as well, RFC, through a friend of mine, Liam Marr. The real story is we met in Silver Springs swimming pool. Liam was training to swim the English Channel at the time, and I said, I knew he had a kid playing in Sunday as well. I said, Liam, what do you think of this idea? Do you think Sunday as well would like to get involved or something like that? So he went back then to Ralph O'Leary, who was on the committee, and he brought it to the executive of the club, and just something, I don't know, it was like blind faith or something, but something clicked with all the members within the club. And it wasn't that like they had loads of information about this, they had none. They were basing it on the information that I had found out about it, and they said, you know what, this is the right thing to do. And that seems to be the theme that's run across the club and the executive. It's the right thing. It's just the right thing, and that's it. And there's no more to it. And I don't know how much more thought process was put into it. And I'm amazed. I am, like, you know, from somebody who's working in the area of disabilities and, you know, trying to push people out of service land, out the gate. Yeah. You know, like, obviously, you know, Cope Foundation is a very large organisation, and, you know, we have support people from a wide range of ages and range of abilities, but community sometimes isn't ready for everybody to go out there and be out there. Okay, the wider community, isn't the big society, without like, you know, without showing examples of how it actually works, so they can get the confidence to say, oh yeah, grand. So there's always skepticism and you know, uncertainty. Well, it's a transition, isn't it? You know, it's massive transition. Like whether it's from primary to secondary and secondary to further education, or then community-based education and then out. So it's all of that. So like, I mean, that experience, and then having the experience of Sundays Well Rugby Club, and just for people who have little or no knowledge of disabilities or, you know, risk assessments or any of that kind of all the stuff that follows somebody with a disability. As I say, that you know, when you have a disability, you tend to end up becoming a folder somewhere. Your details are on a folder, they're in a file, they're in, you know, they're attached to some sort of a spreadsheet or something. You know, there's so much documentation on it, but you're not just let live, you know. And this is a real experience within a club to just let them play rugby, let people play rugby. Great. And that's been very empowering. And I suppose, you know, it's the same as if somebody is going into a business and has a disability, you know, they have worth and they have value and they can add value to the business. And what people have that engage or with the mixed ability team, they've brought massive value to the club. You know, we've gone from having 13 players turg out back in February, a day like today, snowy, rainy day, cold and wet, in 2014, to nearly having almost 60 players registered with Sundays Well Rebels, you know. And is Sundays Well Rebels, is that the mixed ability team? Yeah, we put a name on ourselves called the Rebels. I suppose being a Cork team, being the very first mixed ability team in Ireland, and not necessarily having the full blessing acknowledgement of the powers that be at the time we started out. We just thought, you know, Rebels is a great name. It's perfect for Cork, and now you have your Cork passport. You're allowed, like, to have a name like that. We're still working on that with me. I don't know whether I'll be let out, but that's the kind of, you know, the spirit of, you know, if you want to show ability, you know, you have to create something in order for somebody to see abilities, and that's the thing. So that's what mixed ability has done. Mixed ability rugby has done. It's created that platform that people can just show what they can do. Brilliant. Yeah. So that's in Cork. Is it anywhere else? Do we have any other mixed ability rugby teams in Ireland? So since our inception, I suppose, we went on, we won the World Cup in 2015. We competed in the second Mixed Ability World Tournament. The first one was in Bradford in England. The second one was in Victoria in Spain in 2017. We got to the final of that, unfortunately beaten by the Argentinians, a very strong Argentinian contingent. Right. So now that we're near off 100 days to go to the our own tournament, the third edition of the Mixed Ability International Tournament. We now have the backing of the IRFU, which is fantastic. We worked with the Spirit of Rugby project within the IRFU, and we developed a pilot, and that helped to start a team in Belfast, Malone Tornadoes, and a team in Dublin, De La Salle Parmesan Hawks. And it's great. Cork is really taking the lead here in this, because we have the West Cork Jesters, a fantastic bunch of men and women down around the West Cork area. We played them in a game in Clonakilty there over the weekend with the Clonakilty veterans, and we also have for the first time we actually have the very first ladies team, Ballincollig Trailblazers, and they're attached to Ballincollig Rugby Club. So this tournament coming, there'll be over 1,000 players from 28 teams from 14 different countries, and 4 of them teams will be our women's teams. So the first ever women's tournament will be held in IMART Cork 2020.
Fantastic.
So it's just a reflection of, one, the demand, and two, just in terms of, you know, it's support. Mixed ability can transfer into every part of sport, and the appetite. And I suppose the guys that we played, we were coming back to, say, into the day services or wherever, and they were talking about their tours and their trips and the matches away. And I suppose the ladies that were there were kind of going, why can't we do this?
And why not?
And that's it. So there's a great bunch of them there, and really looking forward to that happening and that tournament happening.
And you've touched on a couple of things there. I mean, you said the demand is there.
Yeah.
You know, society is changing.
Yeah.
We're becoming much more inclusive. And it's not just in sport, it's in the workplace, it's in education, it's everywhere. So how can this translate, say, into the workplace? You're saying that they get a lot more confidence when they're going out to work because they're involved in sport.
The real life examples that we have from our own team have been that they, you know, a lot of the guys have jobs now.
Right.
You know, they're in employment, in various different employment. And I suppose part of that will be obviously the work that, you know, in conjunction with the service providers like the Cope Foundation and the employability programs, but also the confidence that they've built from just being around in a, what you call a mainstream setting, if you want to say that
and
word.
Social situations.
And social situations, the clubhouse afterwards, going to senior matches, you know, supporting, being a member. I think if that's what it is, if you walk down College Road here, and you'll see how many crests you're going to see on people's tops. They'll be from whatever village or GA team they're from where they are from home, or it'll be UCC, or it'll be whatever. People like to be associated and identified. And that sense of belonging is very important. And if you're from a marginalised group, or if you have a barrier, you know, you don't always get that opportunity to belong, or to be a member of something. It's harder for you to have a wide circle of friends, bar those within your immediate peer group. And if you've grown in and gone to a special school, or gone to or attached to a service, well, in general, most of your friends are probably going to have disabilities. So this is just blowing that out of the water. You know, in terms of, there's a larger circle of support there. There's been friendships that built off the field, you know, built on the field, have gone off the field, in terms of, you know, guys I know one particular guy who is now working with one of the lads on he works for his courier company a couple of days a week. And I don't think he'd have had the confidence to employ if he didn't know him on the pitch, you know, because same chap would have speech difficulties and would be very difficult to understand. You know, but he's a great worker. I'm just like, I love everything you're saying around this, and that's why when you got in contact with me, I was like, we have to talk, and we have to do a podcast around this, because Inclusive Cork is all about building community and unity. And these are the way to do it. And it's not waiting for government initiatives or anything like that. I always say inclusion begins with I, and it's about us, each of us as individuals, doing something that is good for the community, but it's also very good for our mental health. Massive.
Isn't it? Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So, like, I suppose from one thing that really amazes me about inclusion and about people interacting with people with disabilities for probably the first time in a meaningful way, you know, because I suppose, you know, most people probably don't have any need or interaction with somebody unless they immediately know them. Is that barrier, is that little inhibition that goes, you know, the sense of spontaneity and fun that comes back into their own lives. So that, how I would describe that is, we have a game of 3 halves. The first 2 halves are on the pitch, the third half is inside in the clubhouse or the bar or wherever the social aspect is. And you know, if the music is on, it's just innate in some of the lads just to get up and dance or sing or whatever. And it's so alien for some of the younger guys that are on our team that don't have disabilities to see that, you know, that they're living really kind of insta lives, that they have to be, you know, have to act a certain way, can't be uncomfortable or uncool. But that then has really had a massive impact on them in terms of, you know, they don't realise, you know, Jesus, it's this short life, just live it.
How to let your hair down without 10 pints. Like
exactly.
Just have fun.
And be in the moment and not worry about kind of, because certainly the lads that I play with on our team, the Rebels, they know how to party, they know how to have fun, they know how to play, they know how to train. But it's just that little essence, that's the magic. That is the real magic to me. And when I see some of the guys out there who just for no apparent reason just keep coming back to they've no like, I suppose my motivation is it's my line of work as well too, you know, professionally. But there are majority of the guys that have come back to play with the Rebels that were attached to the club or have never played rugby before and come play rugby with us. You know, they've no other reason to be there other than rugby. They're not there as volunteers, and I think that's the important part. And
that's what I like. You're changing a narrative a little bit, because often with disability it's about able-bodied people always having, you know, the charity or tragedy and sympathy, and that we're doing it and we're always giving. But actually you're saying it's a two-way relationship.
Massive.
And it's even, that you will get out as more.
It's more the other way.
Okay.
I feel that. That's my own, like... I think it's more for the person who doesn't have the disability. They were getting far more out of it. We would have started off and we would have had narrative and words around kind of we would have player and player facilitator. And the idea of the facilitator was an experienced player, you know, who may have played with the club or knew how to play rugby. We got to the stage, I think we matured as a team ourselves, and we realised, we don't need to call a person a player facilitator. So we changed all our documentation. We changed everything. We just threw it out and said, there's players. Because I suppose in some cases, some of the guys that had disabilities started to know rugby and learn rugby and picked it up a lot quicker than some people, or were better at some things that those who don't have disabilities were, you know. And so we just leveled it. We just leveled all of that.
So you have a toolkit now, am I right?
Yeah.
So can we translate what you've learned in Sundays Well Rugby and with all the other teams around Ireland and with mixed ability rugby tournaments all over the world? Yeah. Can we take that toolkit and translate it into soccer and GAA and
100%,
tennis?
100%.
Talk to us about that.
We worked on a Erasmus Plus project with a number of partners, University of Salamanca, Mixed Ability Sports International, who are a sports-based charitable company in the UK, the Italian Rugby Federation and Spanish Rugby Federation and Rugby Flanders, on designing the guide, Mixed Ability Rugby Guide, but also the toolkit to how this transfers over and case studies. And we're just finishing that project now, but we have our brilliant outcomes. We have documentation that we can share, we can send out, and I can link that towards wherever it was. But the idea is that what we've done with rugby, we're able to just pinch everything that we've done right, put it into the transferability toolkit, and then go to another sport. So in England there's mixed ability rowing, mixed ability boxing, mixed ability swimming sessions, mixed ability runs. When we're as part of our IMART Cork 2020, we're also hosting a Mixed Ability Week. So that will include, we will be doing taster sessions of
brilliant.
Sports. So we'll be working with boxing, rowing, running, and a sport called kinball that I find difficult to explain, but apparently it's all about, it's a big large beach ball. You have to move from one side to the other. Everybody has their hands on it. So it's about how do you be inclusive of getting at one side of the room to the other, regardless of who's on your team. So we'll be showcasing them during that week. We'll also be doing workshops around the area of mixed ability and risk and all that, and how you look and view risk. Do you view risk as an asset? Or do you view risk as purely risk? What's the detriment of just looking at it as a risk? Or if you look at an asset, like if you're not active, if you're not a member of something, you're shortening your lifespan. You're not going to be around forever, because you're going to there's associated illnesses around anxiety, depressions, mental health issues, inactivity. And I suppose if you look at the obesity levels within people in the population, Western world, and then you look at somebody with a disability who automatically has a barrier to enter into to do anything about it, well, they're
Okay, so this is good for all society. It's good for the HSE should be thrilled that you're running this in Cork. Just from what you're saying there, this is all happening in Cork this June.
7th,
what are the dates?
7th to the 12th of June. Our opening ceremony is the 7th. Match days are in Irish Independent Park on the Monday to Tuesday. On the Wednesday, we're hosting an international conference. So that conference is about bringing the mixed ability model through to health and to business. You'll be delighted to hear that we've.
Yes.
So since we started, going about kind of promoting this event, and we were lucky enough to receive European funding based on Erasmus Plus, the big event. So that helped us. We still have to. We're closing the gap because it's kind of a part fund that you have to raise so much to release your funds. So part of our obligations is to host this conference. It's not really an obligation, really. We wanted to do it anyway. But we have John Flint, he's ex-HSBC CEO, coming over as speaker. John has been was a really strong advocate around their global campaign around diversity and inclusion. And we have Kathy Carty. She is manager at the UNESCO chair in Tralee IT around disability and physical education for people with disabilities. So they hold the chair down there. So she will be coming. Very excited to have her on board. We have a local solicitor, Micheál Milan from Uflin Exums, around the capacity bill, and discussing that in relation to consent. People, I choose to play. I want to play, and how do you actually, how do you know that the person people have the right to do that, and it's about kind of not having barriers to sport for people. The
conference sounds fantastic. And what do you need from businesses? So we're here in Cork, in Ireland, right? Very an inclusive, a huge opportunity for business to get involved in this. So what can businesses do?
Well, I suppose we're at if I'm being selfish in terms of Cork is in a very, very strong position now. In terms of the people that are around yourself and the likes of Dermot Crosby, and in terms of diversity and inclusion, what companies are doing, and we're all looking around at each other. We do need to get ourselves organised a little bit more in terms of.
But we will be global leaders in inclusion. It's all going to be good for Cork.
Yes, more certainly. And we have the sporting aspect. I suppose we do have a gap in terms of our funding. Our model is based on. We need to raise money, so we have been out and we've been pounding the pavements and going out to corporates, and we're delighted to have sponsors like Permanent TSB on board, VMware, Heineken, Pernod Ricard, some of the
great brands,
great names, Musgraves, some of these good brands on board, and we're in talks with the likes of Vodafone and stuff like that, and Facebook have come on board with us around kind of what they can do for us. We held our live draw up on Facebook HQ, so everybody knows that this is something that is good to get involved in. And I suppose the main thing here is the legacy. All right, I suppose that we have the funding gap. We are appealing to companies out there to get on board with us, and help us out in that way. And we will, we have volunteer opportunities for people in terms of if they want to get their companies involved. This is a genuine international sporting event.
So it's going to be huge.
Putting your company name to this is a big stamp of action. Gone are the days of kind of where a service or a disability service builds a wall and people come in and paint it. I think them days are gone. If you want to really be involved in inclusion and diversity, do something about it. So
and it has to be real, it has to be authentic, and this is authentic. This is we're playing sport. Where can people get more information? So any of these companies, if they want to get involved,
so they can contact us through our website, www.imart worldcup.org. And obviously, look, if we're on social media, Facebook, IMART World Cup,
I'll put it out there with all my inclusive stuff as well.
And they can, I'm on social media myself, and Alan Craughwell, you can LinkedIn message, whatever needs to happen. But it's fantastic, really exciting. It's going to be a good summer.
It's going to be a great start to the summer, Alan, and thank you so much for coming in today and telling us all about it
Thank
on
you
the
very much.
Disruptability Podcast. And it's going to get out there, and we're going to just have a fantastic week.
And I hope we see you there over the weekend.
Try and keep me away.
Oh, yeah.
My rugby career is starting now.
So they better looking out. Your guys in the home there, they'll be wondering, Mum will have all the rugby lingo.
They've all had their rugby career. Now it's my turn.
Yeah, we'll bring over playing over Argentinians for you. It'll be all right.
Brilliant. Okay. Thank you so
very
much.
much.
Take care.
Thank you.